anytime we get opportunity to come your way. Every Mondays, 8 p.m. on your platform, which I have described time and time over that it is a transformative platform. And the reason why this platform is a transformative platform is simply because we look at the future. We discuss issues that bothers on national interest. We look at how best we want to build a future, better one for that matter, if not your sake or for your sake or for my benefit, at least for the benefit of our next generation and for the benefit of our children who are yet to be even born. And that is why I welcome you to your transformative program. This evening, as we've been doing in the past weeks, we've been looking at the budget. And today, we'll wrap up our conversation on the budget. We want to look at the budget and make reference to the 2026 budget. Last week, we discussed its impact, and it was very, very educative. You were able to interact with us. You shared in your views, you shared in your comments, your questions, and they were all addressed. This evening will not be exceptional because as interactive as your platform has always been, you are going to get opportunity to share in your views and comments again using the social media handles and the platforms as exhibited on the screen, including the WhatsApp line, which will be exhibited on the screen. So we are looking at the budget, the 2026 budget, but this time we are looking at its impact on the energy sector. And that is something that we've always been talking about. Indeed, when we mention Ghana's energy sector, the first thing that comes into the average person's mind has to do with debts. And that is a fact. It is something that over the past years we have even used, politicians have used as a political tool and weapon against their opponents. And so we're always looking at the debt we came to inherit, the debt that we came to inherit, who has accrued more. And that has been it about the energy sector. And anytime we are also looking at the energy sector, one other thing that comes into mind is whether or not we are going to have a very reliable and a stable electricity flow. Truth be told, we are in a country where you cannot, even though comparing this time to some years, we can confidently say that we've made significant inroads, but you can still say that you are in a country where you cannot comfortably say that the next moment you are going to have electricity. Anything is possible at any time. And so that is also one thing that comes into mind when we talk of the energy sector. And that is why it is important for us to look at it, knowing very well that this is a sector that controls every part of our economy. It controls everything, honestly, everything. Productivity, it controls it. It controls transportation. It controls everything that you can imagine or you can think of. And so this evening is just appropriate for us to see whether or not the 2026 budget that was read by our finance minister is a budget that gives us hope. What is the impact of it? What exactly are we expecting as we move into next year from the budget with reference to our energy sector? We are going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to introduce to you our guest that we have for this evening's conversation. And then, after introducing him to you, we'll dive into this. Whilst we do that, or we move even into the commercial break, as I indicated, the impact of the 2026 budget on our energy sector. I'm asking you what you expect or what you were expecting from the budget with regards to the energy sector that we have in this country. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
If I cry na menyisika, edia ye mefui.
Ehinfa pa na menya bosia edia tre medwuma yimu.
Kai kra mabre menya bosia ato taxi fufu. Suhum Rural Bank.
Suhum Rural Bank.
Yemamwa kwa baba Suhum Rural Bank. Ye won hyehyɛ ahodo bi te sɛ dwadifo abosia, ekokro bosia, susu account, and it does all savings account. Me bada chain savings account, and the keka ho. Sohum Rural Bank was 03422918896. Now also what to me aka say.
Sohum Rural Bank. Ama ene my car owner.
Suhum Rural Bank. Enti me pa minie.
Me damwase.
Sohum Rural Bank, growing our heritage.
Hello, Ghana. Payday is here. Stand a chance to win instant cash prizes on Review Scratch for Win. Up to 100,000 Ghana cedis to be won today. Get ready to play Review Scratch for Win to win big on TV XYZ. Stop scrolling and start winning. It's simple. Dial *850*6# on all networks. Choose your card type and select your lucky card for a chance to win big. Play with at least 5 Ghana cedis or more. You could win up to 100,000 Ghana cedis in cash prizes instantly. Yes, you heard right. 100,000 Ghana cedis in cash prizes. Don't miss out on the chance to win big. Dial *850*6# to play it now. Review Scratch for Win. Scratch it again. They discuss it pound. You must be 18 years and above to play. Terms and conditions apply. This game is regulated and approved by the NMA and the Caritas Bank.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural. For bulk purchase, call 0596 273 546 or 0596 273 547. This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back. My name is still Emmanuel, engineer, your host and the chief crusader against corruption here in Ghana. As I indicated, we are having a look at the impact that the 2026 budgets will make on our energy sector. And this evening, we are so privileged to have with us someone who, when it comes to this field, I don't know, but I think I can confidently describe him as an authority. He has a legal background. He's a lecturer at GEMPA. And I'm making reference to Lawyer Lom Nuku Ahilija. Counsel, welcome to Politics and Beyond.
Thank you very much.
This is your very first time, and so we welcome you.
Thank
I
you.
hope you had a good day.
Yes, today has been good.
Nice.
Full day, actually. That's not bad at all.
And still made time to be here. Yeah. We are privileged. Counsel, this is the first thing that caught my attention. Ghana Energy Law and Policy, Electricity, authored by you. I must confess that I like the packaging. The book is nice. It looks so nice. And I believe the content in it is also same. What is the book about?
So essentially, this is a book about the power sector.
Right.
So it essentially chronicles the entire sector in terms of the history, where we started from Nkrumah's days all the way through to current times. Beyond the history, we are looking at the players, who are the regulators, the PRC, the Energy Commission. Of course, in the chain, we have the power producers, both government, independent power producers. We are talking about distribution companies, the transmission company, system operation, all of those. We are looking at regional. So, for example, ECOWAS level, all of that. So it gives you the complete picture.
Okay.
As far as the power sector is concerned.
That's interesting.
That's what the book
That's
covers.
interesting. And I mean, it looks voluminous. So I believe strongly that it contains a lot. My viewers who I know are learned not as in lawyers, but learned because they enjoy knowledge. I'm sure a lot of them would love to have a copy of this book,
Okay.
where can they have it if they want to buy?
So most bookshops carry
Okay.
it. Definitely also at GIMPA, at the law school.
Okay.
You can always reach out to us. We'll
Very
be
well.
able to provide copies
Very
to
well.
them. Yes.
That's right. So
And
if you
it
are
can be delivered wherever they are.
That's great. That's great. So if you need, I'm sure lawyer will put a number through for you to get in contact with. But as he indicated, I'm sure when you go to is it EPP, you can get one to buy.
Yes.
When you go to GIMPA Law School, you can also get one to buy. Doc, it's quite interesting. We're talking about the energy sector or the power sector. We know, and we keep making reference to the energy sector, the energy sector, the energy sector.
Yes.
What comes into mind quickly has to do with electricity.
Okay.
But when we talk of energy sector, what exactly are we talking about?
Okay, so the sector is broader than electricity.
Very well.
Because electricity is one component of it.
Mm.
But generally, we are talking about oil and gas and power. So those are the two broad areas.
Okay.
Oil and gas usually go together because, as I'm sure you know, and of course our viewers are aware, there is a close correlation or link between gas and oil.
Sure.
Indeed, gas is usually associated with oil. And so that's on the one hand, and then we have power on the other side. So power is electricity. That's what deals with powering our homes. The electricity from all kinds of sources of resources, natural resources, and so on. And then, of course, we also have oil and gas, which is the other aspect of it. And so generally, you cover this
the whole
areas.
areas. It's quite interesting. You know, before we even come to the budget, which is the main conversation, what makes the energy sector so important in the development of a country? Yeah.
Well, the energy sector drives almost everything.
Sure.
In fact, so for instance, we've heard things like we need to industrialize. Okay. If you want to move our country from the level it is now to a level where, for instance, poverty will be alleviated, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
And one of the key things you hear repeatedly is we need to industrialize. We need to develop our country. That requires energy because we are talking about how to infrastructure, you know, building infrastructure. You need power for that. We're talking about lighting homes. We're talking about factories, powering the factories, all the things driving the transportation, the fuel, petroleum products, all of those things are key inputs in industrialization. Everything that requires some mechanical operation will have some element that relates to the energy sector, something in the chain.
Yeah.
And so it will be difficult for a country to industrialize if they don't have a grip on the energy sector.
Okay.
Of course, not every country has all the resources within their domain, but you must have the capacity to acquire it, even if you don't have it. So, for example, maybe countries like, let's say, Singapore, supposed to be highly skilled and human resource rich, but not very rich in natural resources. They still will be able to acquire the resources from other places, either through imports and so on. So you need that to drive your industries, to drive your economy, to fuel your infrastructure building, all those things, and powering the factories and all of that. So energy is essential to everything that the country aspires to do.
But if that is so, how come? I'm not sure whether it is due to mismanagement, but how come over the past years, all we talk about is the debt that is being accrued at the energy sector? What exactly? Because if it is so important and it is very, very key to almost everything that the economy demands or needs, then it means we need to give it a very special attention. Yet, when we talk of the energy sector, aside electricity coming into mind, the next thing that comes into the average citizen's mind is debt.
Yes.
What causes that?
Well, it's a multifaceted conversation.
Right.
The question you've asked.
Right.
But I'll say that, to put it very simply, what it is that we've had a situation where over the years, so this we are talking about, decades.
Sure.
The way in which we have, if I should say, developed the energy sector, it automatically accrues lots of debt. So let me give you one example. even, for example, in the budget, the finance minister made mention of the fact that this current government inherited energy sector debt, or at least related to power, 1.4 billion. Where is that 1.4 billion coming from? Essentially coming from debt.
That's Ghana cedis, right?
No,
dollars.
US dollars.
Great.
That's even more significant.
Exactly.
US dollars. And this is debt owed to players within the power sector. And here we are talking about independent power producers and then fuel suppliers. So the debt comes in because the way in which the transactions are structured and the kind of associated costs that come with them. We seem to be in a situation where we are not paying enough. So at every point in time, we have arrears building up. And the arrears are building up because we are not paying. And we are not paying due to many reasons. That's why I said it's multifaceted. One of them, for example, is related to how much as a country we even pay for power. Are we paying power tariffs that are realistic, which will be enough to cover the cost of these various plants and the various players within the chain? That's one. Secondly, we could also be looking at the costs of inputs, okay? Because as you know, the tariff is dependent on what went into the cost. So if there's inefficiencies in the procurement process, if there's inefficiencies in how it's put up, I'm sure we've all heard about the for example, on the ECG side, how there are lots of commercial losses. Because even though the power is going to homes, people are diverting it, which means that they are not paying for it. And if they are not paying for it, then obviously distribution companies are not collecting that money to be able to pay producers or transmitters and all of that. So there are many reasons why the debt keeps accruing. But of course, that debt must be dealt with, because the more it remains unpaid, the more the country owes, because these are tied, most agreements that include these costs are also dependent on penalties and delayed payments and so on. So the more you accrue the debt, the more it goes up, because there'll be other penalties and calculations coming in, which basically keep escalating the costs. So I think when we get into the budget, we'll
look at some of those things. But let me just add this one. It says that the sector is projected to face a $9 billion deficit by 2026 if urgent reforms are not implemented. But the most interesting one is that the Electricity Company of Ghana collects only 62% of energy purchased, with significant revenue spent on non-essential expenditures. It's becoming interesting. Let's tie it into the budget. What was your general impression of the budget?
Beyond the energy sector, or
specifically the energy sector?
I think there are proposals that are being put forward to address some of these challenges. For example, the debt and related matters are quite interesting. And I would say that overall, I think it's a good direction that the budget is going in. As to whether it is adequate is one of the things that we'll continue to discuss, because there's still more room to do better. But definitely my impression of the budget, looking at what is proposed to be done in the energy sector, is on the right path.
Are you able to share some of the proposals with us?
So for example, with the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, the source of funds for that or coming from petroleum is directed to be invested in certain kinds of instruments. Essentially, the Act puts it such that it is focused on foreign denominated investments and essentially low risk investments. So here we are talking about things in the nature of like bonds and bills, and things like that. One of the things that is proposed to be done for 2026 is that the Ministry of Finance seeks to get parliamentary approval to change the focus of the investment. So instead of investing in low risk foreign denominated securities, one of the key things the minister is seeking approval to do is to be able to diversify, such that some of those funds can be invested into income generating production type investments that are local. So in that respect, they give examples like investing in a new gas production facility or investing in new power plants. Because what we need to understand is that most of the power plants in Ghana, or at least the independent ones, are foreign owned. So we need to have a view to how to localize and domesticate the investment. So one of the proposals is that let's use funds from petroleum revenue, invest in local, for example, power plants, local gas production facility, rather than investing in foreign denominated low risk investments. So that kind of changed the dynamics in terms of the flow, because as we know, because a lot of these, if I say capital intensive investments are being funded by foreigners or foreign companies and entities, these IPPs and so on. What it also means is that repatriation of profits, the impact on the city and the economy and all of that, which means that if the approval is indeed given and the government is able to localize some of those investments in these types of income producing investments, that can very well change the dynamic. And I think that's a good thing to consider, rather than always looking for foreign investors. And investing in foreign denominated securities and instruments.
Okay, so from what you are saying, it is, I mean, you are suggesting that the budget seems favorable when it comes to the energy sector of this country.
There are a number of changes that I propose which seem progressive. So we can look at
this. They did look at also introducing other form of energy, like renewable energies, into the energy sector.
So that's not a big focus of it, because you see that, of course, it touches on that generally, but the focus in terms of key activities for 2026 seems to be focused on the new state-owned power plant that is proposed to be done, 1,200 megawatts, which is a huge facility, but that's thermal. But beyond that, it also talks about exploring mini hydro projects, because there are certain communities within Ghana which are essentially isolated. So Afram Plains, Volta, there are a number of places like that. So it proposes looking at mini hydro projects, things that maybe there are local lakes and so on that can be tapped to serve those kinds of communities. But those will not be big projects. They'll be much smaller. But you can see that the emphasis is on the thermal, big ones. But not only that, you know that when this gas production facility comes online, what it means is that we are producing more from within, rather than relying on imported fuel sources like light crude and so on. So that shift is also good, because what it does is that it takes us away from getting the fuel source from outside to getting it from within. So in that respect, again, the localization is showing. But in terms of the renewable energy and other sources, I'll say that's on the smaller scale. But one major one, which is not necessarily a new introduction in this budget, it's a journey that the country has been on, is to go nuclear. Yes, which the budget also restates and reemphasizes the fact that that is still on the agenda of the government, because we started our journey sometime in 2007 in the country. Ghana has been going through the International Atomic Energy Agency processes to make sure that we can get there. The goal is to be able to introduce nuclear in Ghana by 2030. That is a huge difference, and that's an alternative to the usual thermal generation, which is the big provider of power for Ghana.
That's right. That's quite interesting. Okay, so now we move into the main conversation, and we are still, even though we've started already, but we are looking at the budgets. The first has to do with the debts. Then obviously you must find a way of clearing the debts. And then after clearing the debts, you must then also find a way of increasing revenue. Then you know that you are moving on track. Because you can clear the debt, and if you are not increasing revenue, you come back to square one. The budget, what does it say in relation to clearing of our debts? Did it make any clear proposal to that effect?
Yes, it does. A number of things, actually. One of or let me say, firstly, the government has indicated that they've already negotiated or renegotiated power purchase agreements.
Okay.
So the power purchase agreements are the agreements that are signed by the distribution companies with the producers.
Okay.
And here we are the debt is essentially independent power producers.
Right.
So these are foreign or non-state-owned players who have come in with private capital and have built and so on. And so those power purchase agreements, the way they are structured, also has an impact on how the debt will be. Because as I mentioned earlier, for instance, if there are provisions related to penalties for not late payments and all of that, it will be in part of how quickly the debt escalates. And I'm sure we've also heard in the past this debate about take or pay, take and pay, and all of that. And of course, most international transactions that relate to power plants, you'll see that there's an element of capacity, what they call the capacity charge, which is something you pay just because the plant will come. And then anytime they produce power, energy, which we actually consume, like we are in the studio here benefiting from it, you pay for how much they have produced. So one of the things that the Minister of Finance indicated was that the government has renegotiated some of the power purchase agreement. So essentially what they have done is to free up capital in terms of reduction and so on. So the budget talks about savings of about $250 million.
$250 million.
$250 million. That's what, that's a figure that has been indicated there. So that's one way. So you'll be able to get some savings in terms of the renegotiation. And beyond that, the renegotiation, we haven't seen the details of this agreement, but perhaps the new terms that have been agreed with these IPPs may be more favorable in terms of down the line increases in the debt in terms of payments and so on. So that's one of the things.
Right.
Also, again, I indicated that collection is key. And you made a point earlier about when you read about ECG and how, for example, you said based on the statistics, they are talking about 62%.
62%, yeah.
If ECG, and I need to make this point, ECG is the biggest consumer in terms of purchasing power from the producers. So ECG accounts essentially for about 80,
all of it. That's right.
Because NEDCO is a smaller player in the distribution side, and then we have Enclave Power, which is a private player. But if ECG is collecting only 62%, what it means is that about 38% is unaccounted for. That unaccounted for is huge, and it's essentially in two or maybe three areas. One is technical losses. It means that perhaps the kind of equipment or investments that are in there are not of a certain quality. So you are losing power by going over the machines. Then secondly, it could be commercial, where people are stealing power, and obviously ECG is not collecting for that. And I think you also made a point in when you highlighted that about the fact that some investments are going to non-essential. So which means that they, so if you take it that way, you realize that there's a big shortfall to start with, which means that ECG cannot pay fully for power that it is purchasing because it's losing so much that is not collecting. So one of the things that the minister indicates as a solution, which has already started running from this year and will continue into next year, is something called the cash waterfall mechanism.
Very true, yeah.
Essentially, it is a formula for distributing collection. So when ECG receives money, how do they pay and who do they pay? And that comes to the point about the non-essentials, because it is possible for ECG to collect money but not pay it to an IPP and perhaps use it to build something, a hostel, something else other than its core mandate. So what the mechanism has done, and from what has been proposed, it is to enforce the mechanism such that it works as it should, which means that once collection is done by ECG, automatically there's a formula for determining how much you go to the IPPs, how much you go to the fuel supplies, how much you go to ECG itself, Gridco, via all the players, so that there's an equitable sharing in terms of the collection, whilst they continue to work on how to reduce those losses. Tied to that is the whole conversation around privatization of ECG itself, because we know in the past an attempt was made, the famous or infamous PDS deal, and how that went and got truncated.
Right.
So one of the other things that the budget proposes to do is to get private participation in the ECG work or network, and that the budget indicates has been approved by cabinet, which means that we'll start seeing activity in terms of that. Yeah. We know from anecdotal information that the structure that is being proposed is to have ECG's concession area divided into smaller concessions for different players, so that they can give better targets in terms of collection. So if ECG can collect only 62%, we can say, okay, you know what, we are going to consider 10 players for the ECG area.
Right.
Your target is to meet 90%. If you don't meet 90%, this is the consequence. If you meet it, this is the benefit. And then year on year, push them to improve to 100%. Of course, 100% is not possible because there'll definitely be some technical elements in terms of the losses. But the idea is to drive collections higher so that you can collect more, pay more, and then you can take away the debts.
That's true. I would have read this later on, but let me tie it in. This is a tester, Moses from Nkwanta. He says that ECG connects people to national grid without meter and charges fixed price monthly, and this is not accounted for. Is there anything like that?
It happens all over the country, and definitely I even know people who have gone through that. So what happens is that what happens is that sometimes they have challenges with their meters. I don't know, maybe procurement, the meters have income, something, which itself is a problem because you want the utility to be efficient. They should always be ahead of the demand. They should plan ahead and all of that. But it happens where there are times when they're able to connect people to the grid and they give them a fixed charge. So if your fixed charge is, say, 1,000 cedis a month, what if you are consuming 1,005 cedis? What it means is that that 500 cedis is being lost, and multiply that by, say, thousands of customers. That's a lot of money, and so on. So it's happening, and that's a very...
Is it an official thing, something that is officially recognized, that ECG can go and say that we are giving you a fixed meter or a meter, but you are paying a fixed amount? I thought it was an illegal thing.
Okay, so I would say it's not illegal.
Right.
The reason I would say that is because, at least from what I know,
they
are doing that even officially. Because there are many, many people who have experienced that, and I know head of that. So what it means is that it's not a private person who has called an electrician to come and install connect you with the router. No, this is ECG officials who have actually gone ahead to do that. Or there are times when perhaps you may even have a meter already.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then there's a challenge with the meter. And you're saying, no, my meter is not reading. I need a new meter. If the new meter is installed immediately, then you can reduce that burden. But there are times when ECG will tell you, we don't have new meters.
Yeah.
But in the interim, you're already connected to the grid. You're already receiving power. It's just that it's not reading. So they'll now tell you that, okay, we'll give you a fixed charge, which they base on your past consumption. They do some calculation. But the truth is that they can never be sure how much you'll be consuming. And the truth is that once you put a customer in that position, then it means the customer can now start getting ideas about much more things they can do, because perhaps in the past they were a bit measured because they know they are paying. But if now you say you don't have a new meter, you've given them a connection which is fixed, maybe they want to start doing some block making. They are selling ice block. They are doing, they start getting ideas, and they'll start crossing the fixed amount. Now multiply that by thousands of customers, and you begin to see that there'll be revenue leakage massively, and it's happening all over. So those are some of the things that
Is it a case of our inability to get the right human resource to take care of the energy sector the way it ought to be? Is it a case of just mismanagement? Is it a case of, well, it is a sector that we can never get the best out of, and so we can manage it as we are managing? What exactly is the reason?
I don't think so. I think we have the human resource. Of course, there's always room for improvement, because there are many other countries that are doing it better than us, and we can always learn from them. And I know some of the utilities have good relations with other utilities in the West and so on, who are ahead. But I'll say that generally in the power sector or in the energy sector, there is a lot of capacity, human capacity. Even if we move away from the power side, even to oil and gas, you know that we have local content regulations for oil and gas. So that's a deliberate policy of the states to ensure that even where we don't have expertise, there's a plan to get it. So a lot has been happening, from the Petroleum Commission, making sure that all players in the upstream sector for oil and gas are using Ghanaians as much as possible, or putting measures in place to ensure that even when you bring foreign expertise, they pass on the knowledge and so on. So there's a lot happening. In the power sector, I would say that one is a given, because right from independence till now, essentially the entire grid has been in the hands of Ghanaians, and institutions like VRA and so on. They have really solid engineers and staff and so on. It is a mix of perhaps policy introduction, policy implementation, consistency in policy implementation. Obviously, changes in government also affect how these policies and the focus areas and all of that. But I think if you look, let's say in the last maybe decade, generally things have been stable as far as the power sector is concerned. But on the oil and gas side, there has been a decline, and the budget also talks about that. We are not seeing as much investment in new production of oil and gas and so on. And so there's a need to push for that, just to drive new discoveries and so on. So the budget proposes, for example, to GMPC's foray into the Voltaigne Basin, to do some exploration work in the Voltaigne Basin, which is on the eastern side of the country towards Togo. So those are things that we need to look into.
There's one thing that is of interest, and I said it earlier before we went for the quick break, and that has to do with reliability of electricity. Clearly, over the past, maybe even just a year ago and now, we can all say that there has been some significant improvement when it comes to stability of electricity. What's really, I'm not going to ask what caused us to have that unreliable flow of electricity, but I want to find out, is there something that is being done differently that is causing us to a very large extent have that faith and confidence that our electricity is still going to be stable as we are enjoying now?
Okay. Yes, I'll say so. So even though you say we shouldn't go back, we have to go back.
That's
because
fine.
What happened is that
yeah,
our last major episode, where we had unreliable power, which was in the 2006-2007 period. What happened was that, not even 2007. So that's the last but one before that. So we had in 2012, 2015. So what happened was that because we went through that phase, at the time, the government invested heavily in new generation. So a lot of the independent power producers we have in Ghana today are from that era. So for example, the Car Power, the AXA, the Twin Cities, we are talking about all these new ones. They came as a result of that challenge, which is good because at least we didn't just allow that episode to continue endlessly. An attempt was made, and that attempt resulted in new investments. So you will see that since that period till now, there have not been major investments in generation. not major investments in generation, but then other investments in transmission, and of course the distribution side, there was an attempt to do the privatization. So what has happened is that it has carried us far because of how much it was invested then.
Okay.
And that's why I note the fact that because in this budget is proposed that for 2026 there will be investment in the 1,200 megawatt thermal plant. That is good. It's forward thinking, because you don't want to get to a point where you have unreliable power before you get into it. Because when you do that, it will impact or may impact your costs element and so on. And apart from even what the government itself proposes, which is state-owned power thermal plants, there are other independent power producers who are also in the chain, have applied and gone through the processes, have the licenses and so on. And I know some of them will also be coming on stream down the line.
Okay.
Because you asked a question earlier about alternatives.
Yes.
And I know
Yes.
VRA, they are state-owned, but they are also trying to do a lot in the renewable energy side with solar and so on. So those are welcome ideas, because you always want the investment to be ahead of the growth in the demand. You must plan in such a way that as the population is increasing, as we are pushing for industrialization, factories, companies should come and so on. The more you get those factories and businesses in, if you have not already invested in generation or transmission or distribution, you have a situation where the demand will overtake the reliable power. So now we have reliable power as a result of those investments. And I'm happy to see that there's a plan to continue investing in generation. But generation is also just one leg of it.
Sure.
After you have the generation, if for example, Gridco has not invested significantly in transmission, you have the generation, but the transmission is not carrying it because investment has to go there as well. Then distribution also obviously comes in, which, as we mentioned, there's a plan to privatize or to not privatize, but there should be private participation in the distribution side where ECG is concerned. And we are yet to see those details.
Yes. In fact, with the privatization, because that's also one question I was coming to, is it that difficult for us to say that, okay, the distribution part, we want to go purely privatized. We want to privatize it and let the private sector be in charge of distribution? Are there any challenges to that, if we should?
Well, it can be done. That's the first point. Many countries have it where indeed the entire distribution is in private hands. So that is possible. But you know that every country has its peculiar issues. And so, for instance, I know that organized labor have made their point quite clear that they don't want a full privatization, which means that they have concerns about whether a strategic, for example, national asset or area or sector like energy should go that way. And those are concerns that you don't dismiss, because it's based or premise on actual data or research that they also have in terms of their members and what the feeling is among the general public and so on. So it's good to do that, which is why I believe that the government is looking at participation. Participation means that the government's institution or utility like ECG will continue to have a stake, but then there will be a room to allow private players to also come in to support in areas where perhaps private sector may have better experience or strengths. In fact, you recall that even in the PDS deal that was abrogated, even with that, there was a split. ECG continued to have a role in terms of being the asset ownership of all the distribution assets, and the ECG was still in ECG. And then PDS was more like the operator to run it and collect the money and do all of that. So we are yet to see the full details of what the private participation will look like. But I can anticipate that to be along those lines, where there will still be government retention of some element of it and so on. And of course, there will need to be more stakeholder engagement so that groups like organized labor, think tanks, civil society organizations, groups can also bring, and of course, general public, the citizens also bring their views to bear. But as I said, it's possible to have it entirely in private hands, and it still works in other places.
If you just join us, you are with us on your transformative program, Politics and Beyond. This evening, we are looking at the impact that the 2026 budget is making or going to make on the energy sector of this country. And we are privileged to have with us lawyer Ahija, a lecturer, and then lecturer in what? Private legal practitioner and a lecturer with the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, that is GIMPA. So we are still discussing that. Council, the one question a lot of people ask, and for me, it is fair to ask that question. We always put blame on the government for not clearing the debts that we've talked about. But there's this school of thought that argues that, well, Ghanaians are also not paying realistic tariff. Others say that, well, we are not paying realistic tariff, not that we are not paying realistic tariff, but the tariffs that are imposed on us are too high. So it's just like taxation. A few people are paying taxes and they are being overburdened. Okay. And majority of the individuals who are consuming electricity, for instance, are not paying at all. And so which one is which? I want us to move from the government to the citizens. Is it that citizens are not paying realistic tariff? And if they are not paying, which one is supposed to be realistic?
Well, first of all, we have to start with when it comes to tariffs.
Right.
The PURC, Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, is responsible for approving tariffs.
Sure.
So for public utilities, they essentially have to make a case why a certain tariff should be given to them. And of course, that's based on a proposal they submit to the commission,
sure,
justifying investments already made and plans for the future, which means that it is based on actual,
okay,
as well as projected. But the actuals is a significant portion because you have already invested in transmission line from here to here. You want this, you want that. So what the PRC does is to review the proposals and see where, for example, inefficiencies in procurement, the projects, how critical were they, who sent you to do them when perhaps you should have done them and so on. So the commission is able to kind of strip everything bare and look at what is the most essential as far as the investment is concerned. That's one. There's also a stakeholder engagement. So the public is invited to come and make comments. They meet specific stakeholder groups like industries and so on. So at the end of the day, when the commission approves a tariff, the expectation is that the tariff reflects various indices, economic, social, and other factors.
Yeah.
So as it stands, I would say that once the tariff is approved, at least it's gone through a certain process. Now, there are things that impact the tariff, even aside what I've described.
Right.
Things like the exchange rates.
Okay.
So which means that anytime we have, for example, our major foreign currencies, appreciating against the cedi, it will impact us directly. Why? Because a lot of the inputs for the power and oil and gas sector are foreign. We are not building transmission facilities, for example, necessarily in Ghana. Transformers, there may be some low voltage ones that are built in Ghana, but high voltage are coming from outside. As I mentioned, these power plants are not produced here, they are brought from outside. So there's a huge impact on the books of public utilities because of the foreign element of it. In fact, if you take the audited accounts published of the state utilities that are in the power sector or energy sector in general, you will see that one of the significant losses is exchange losses.
Okay.
In fact, sometimes on all their figures, you can see that they should have made a profit.
A profit, yeah.
Then exchange losses comes in and it wipes out everything. Yes, because if you are importing transformers from China
Yeah.
at a certain rate.
Yeah.
By the time you now actually put in the order, by the time it gets in, the
It
cost.
has
So
changed.
a
Yeah.
lot of that is impacted, which means that the energy sector tariff paid by consumers, as you asked, is predicated on the economy itself being on a certain footing as well. So as to whether we are paying more or less is also impacted by many factors. But I'll say bottom line, once PRC approves a tariff, we look at it in terms of it considering the various angles and coming up with something that is most reasonable in order to achieve the cost objective of the utilities, at the same time consumers being able to afford it and pay. And many other dimensions to it, because you also note that in Ghana, we talked about this earlier, the industrialization drive needs to go more.
Yeah.
Which means that there might be differentiation in terms of tariffs, for example, if it's in commercial or industrial, as against domestic use, for example. Things like, we have some element of it, but they can be deepened further based on many factors. And so for consumers, we want to pay less and a lot, and we want that because it can be done. But it means all the decisions in the chain up to the time when PRC approves a tariff has to be scrutinized, so that inefficiencies are not being passed on to us.
Right.
Procurement of power plants and equipment and so on must be at the best value for money level, so that by the time it gets a tariff, we can get rates that are reasonable to pay and so on.
That's really interesting. Then what it means is that now that we are enjoying some stability in terms of our CD-dollar relationship, it is expected that most of these wastages and debt that have been accrued will be minimized, isn't it?
Yes,
because that's what it means. There's one tester that has also raised something which is of interest. It says that you didn't add your name, do you? Say, good evening, I'm enjoying your guests. There are postpaid meters in the system, but no one goes out to check them. What is ECG doing about that? And I think that is really true. I know of a household that is using a postpaid meter. And I'm told that for the past 3 or so months, they've not received any bill. In fact, there hasn't been anyone there to even read the meter. So if this is what is happening, I'm sure it's part of the mismanagement. If this is what is happening, you end up losing. And it adds up to the debts.
Absolutely.
I think we should find a way of, overhauling the system, the energy sector. And I don't know whether that is possible, but I think it is something that we need to do. It's something that we need to do. From all that we have said, it is so clear that the 2026 budget gives some hope as far as the energy sector is concerned. It talks about the energy sector recovery program, as you've mentioned. It talks about the cash waterfall mechanism. Now, you've mentioned that, but for the benefit of my viewers, what does it really mean when we talk of cash waterfall?
Okay. So I'll say that, to put it simply, it's a formula.
Okay.
It's like a formula for determining allocation of revenue collected by the distribution companies, specifically ECG, because that's the big one.
Okay.
So as you said, when ECG collects money from us, consumers, or all of us who are under their area, the mechanism is such that comes into an account. It graduates to everybody down the chain. So ECG has to pay the power plants that produce the power. They have to pay Gridco for transmitting it. Then, of course, they have to pay fuel supplies, because in most of the power purchase agreements, for example, fuel risk and so on will be on ECG. So they have to pay for the fuel supplies. They have to pay any of the entities that have a stake in that collection. So with the mechanism, it enables equitable payments. Whereas in the past, ECG will have discretion. They can collect 100 million and decide that I want to pay 1 million to this IPP, I want to pay 2 million to this, and keep 70 million to do their own thing.
Okay.
But with the mechanism,
Yeah.
essentially it's been taken out of there. So you see that the budget talks about enforcing the mechanism. Collection and then distribute according to the mechanism. So that and that reduces more, because if you have a debt, this IPP debt sector debt we are talking about, and you have the formula working as it should, at least there's a certain expectation of how much every month should be reduced. Whereas in the past, ECG could decide that I want to pay 1% this month. Maybe next month I'll pay 10%. Maybe another month I might not even pay. So it had this, it created the problem and deepened it more. So now with this mechanism, it kind of streamlines the process and allows for payments to be done equitably.
That's right. There's one interesting thing, still on the budget, talks about gas production. You mentioned it earlier, that the budget seek to increase gas production from major fields to reduce reliance on expensive light crude oil.
Exactly.
Right. And then the other one, which would be the very last part of, says renewable energy expansion. Yes. The budget plans to increase renewable energy generation to 15% by 2030, supported by projects like the Bui Solar Expansion and then Akono Solar Park. Which one is that one?
The one that was recently commissioned by the president.
Oh, okay. Where is it located?
That's around the Dawa Industrial Enclave. That's towards Pram-Pram's area.
Oh, towards Pram-Pram. Okay. Mandible, inside Seshiwi also. I was expecting Ato to say something about unemployed nurses. In fact, we are tired of being in the house. Why? Okay. I agree. I mean, I understand. I've been receiving a number of messages in line with that, but I'm sure at the appropriate time we'll talk about that and then see how we can deal with that one. Council, two things before we come to an end. Our time is fast spent now. First one has to do with, and it is not part of this, but I want you to make a comment before you come in with your very last words. Just yesterday or so, releases came out from our children who went to write the WASI exams. And I'm asking you because you are in the academic field.
Yes.
What do you make of the result that came?
Well, I've seen a lot in terms of what the media has covered. And I think perhaps the reason we ask is because there's a general consensus that this time the results were not as good as perhaps maybe in recent years. And I've also seen from the reports that there seems to be a focus on the fact that there was enhanced invigilation this time. I don't know what informed that outcome, but or let me say that reason that I've seen, but it seems to be so. And if that is the reason, that's quite worrying. What it means is that perhaps in the past things have been maybe inflated because of possibility that people were able to cheat and so on, which should not happen, because if you cannot safeguard the integrity of an exam at that level, the effect on the country in general are even there, because if a child knows I can copy, what kind of adult will that child even be? You see, and so it's a big concern, and I think that we have to look at it. As you said, I'm in academia, so I know we receive students from the secondary schools as well, for example in the law school for the undergraduate LLB program and so on. And there's always concern about the quality, in terms of the products that are coming into the school. So for me, I will support any initiative that ensures that when they say somebody has passed, they have passed because they met the criteria, not because there were other ways in which they were able to go around it.
That's really interesting. I have also heard a number of people, those speaking for and against, as in reasons why the result came the way it came, and whether or not, I mean, obviously you get some people reducing it to partisanship. So they are having all the conversation around it. But what is important is what Council just said. The fact that these are individuals we are building to take charge of our future. And so we need to ensure that if it is a pass, then it means they have really passed.
Exactly.
Not the kind of pass where we'll just tickle ourselves for a moment, not realizing that we are digging a very dangerous pit for us in the near future. You may not be affected, I may not be affected, but our children may be affected because these are people who are going to be our leaders, future leaders. Doc, your very last words on the subject that we've discussed today.
Well, I'll say that the energy sector, as you said, we are enjoying stability now as far as power is concerned. From the budget, clearly there needs to be a lot more on the oil and gas side because, as is clearly pointed out, we need newer investments in that area, and I know there's plans to do that. And of course, also that we have the petroleum hub, which is also one of the key things that has to really drive our sector, which is very early stages. I'm sure Dr. Tony Obin and his team are working on that side. I'm looking forward to see more from there because there needs to be a deliberate effort to drive deep in the sector. And so for the oil and gas side, I'm looking forward to the kinds of things that that institution and others like it will be able to start working on, and where new things come in, we have perspectives or views on it to also share them just to make things better.
Well. Very well. Thank you so much, Doc. In fact, if you get someone helping you understand the energy sector, which is so technical, in this enjoyable manner, then you should know that indeed a person is authority or is an authority. So I want to say thank you so much, Doc, for giving us all this insightful knowledge. It is so clear that the energy sector, as far as the 2026 budget is concerned, we can confidently describe it as a budget that is giving us some hope, a budget that is forward-looking and progressive, a budget that has the pillars of ensuring that our debts will be gradually taken care of. And for us, that is what we need. You and I, as citizens, that is what we need. This coming Saturday, there's going to be a program hosted by the Young Progressive Network and the Wejagbawe Municipal Assembly. So this coming Saturday at 9 a.m., if you are in that environment or environ, try and be there. The Wejagbawe Municipal Assembly Hall. It is starting at 9 a.m. and it is supposed to end at 4 p.m. We have, it is an interest, and the reason why I'm making this public is because I believe the content is going to benefit you, especially the young one, the youth. The theme for this conference is Youth Entrepreneurship Forum. So it's a forum and capacity building. So it's a capacity building workshop under the theme Leading Change, Youth Entrepreneurship for Inclusive and Sustainable Development. We have guest of honor being the Municipal Chief Executive, Honorable Felix Odati Lamte. We have speakers such as Lawyer Edward Kariwe, Bandim Hannah, and then myself, Emmanuel Wilson Jr. So we are going to be there. I mean, I'm going to be there with my colleague speakers for us to look at youth entrepreneurship, not unemployment, youth entrepreneurship. We are going to see how to lead change. I would love to see you there this coming Saturday at 9 a.m. at the Wejagbawe Municipal Assembly Hall. All too soon, this is where time will allow us. On your behalf, I want to say a very big thank you to Councillor Ahilija for making time to join us here. Because I believe this is going to be the beginning of many relationships that we're going to have on this platform. We've really enjoyed every bit of the things that you've said, and we also want to appreciate you for the wonderful gifts that you have given to politics and beyond, and that has to do with Ghana energy law and policy, the electricity factor. You can get it on, I mean, when you visit any of the leading bookshops, including Legon Bookshop and the EPP Bookshop. You can also drive or walk to Gimpa Law School, and you can have one there. Council, do you have a number you want to put across so that anyone who is interested can reach out to? Yes.
Yes, that's 054 182 8446.
So 054 182 8446.
Yes.
Call, and then you can be directed as to how to have access to this. Council, thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's a
pleasure.
privilege. Yeah, it's a privilege. All too soon, as I indicated, this is where time will allow us. I'm still your host, Emmanuel Wilson Jr. We meet again next week, Monday. Until we do so, all I can say for now is good night.